Alright people, so welcome back to our Mitre-Attack series with this video. So today we are going to cover Secure Shell, SSH. So this is a topic where there is no passive aggressive feelings like we had in our last video, DCOM. So SSH is a complete different topic. It's one of those things where there is the argument that it is really, well, there's little you can complain about something like SSH. It's just a good, let's say, technology. It is useful for servers. We use it all the time. And yeah, let's get into it now. So, today we have Monday, the 26th of January. As you can see, we are still in the tactic of lateral movement. The platforms that are affected by this are ESXi, Linux and macOS. So SSH is a Linux technology pretty much, and macOS is built on top of Linux. You might have known that, you might have not known that, but SSH is not relevant in the Windows world. And it is just a protocol to, I mean, what does it do? You need a valid account, it says here, yes, and then you can remotely log on that machine and open a shell, like a terminal, as if you are sitting or directly logged into that machine. There's no difference except for the latency there, and then you can have the shell of your liking, so bash or corn shell or whatever you like. So there are different shell like languages, let's say, and you can remotely administer your systems then. All you need is an SSH server running on that computer and having an open port for SSH. I don't remember what the port for SSH is. They don't say it here either. I think it can be configured also differently. Anyway, so it's just a way to remotely log into many machines and not having to go there physically and log in like that. What do they say here? SSH is a protocol that allows authorized users to open remote shells. Many Linux and macOS versions come with SSH installed by default, yes. So there are people out there who are only using their Linux machine. If it's a server, for example, you don't even have a graphical interface, you only use SSH for that. But if you don't need it, you can disable it. On macOS it's not necessary, even though I used it on macOS too. It's convenient. You can get things done quickly, and the professionals tend to use it. Also, you look like a crazy hacker whenever you use shell, right? It's just a black screen with white, or sometimes change the colors of that so you look like a professional hacker all of a sudden when you just use a shell, you know. So some people do that for show, I guess. But it's not just show, it's useful too. And here they explain you how you can enable it on ESXi. Obviously you want it on ESXi machines as well. And here they write the SSH server can be configured. Your standard password authentication, so typically you just have username, password. But if you think that's not enough, you can use private key pairs. So in addition to passwords, they say in lieu. So this word, whenever I see this, in lieu, that's like fancy vocabulary. It means instead of. Okay. So instead of a password, you can use key pairs, or you can use it in addition to the password. This means the file must be located on the system that is logging in, and then the server knows, aha, that's the guy that we can authorize. It's just one additional layer of like another factor. It's almost like multi-factor authentication there. Yeah, but that's what it is. So there's really not much you can say about SSH. So over the years, as far as I know, there hasn't been a big vulnerability or 0 days, or well, there might be a 0 day, who knows? But so that's a pretty solid piece of software here. It's rarely in the news. I can't remember a single case where it has been compromised, and it is used a lot. I think the source code is open too, so you can verify it yourself if you don't trust it. Yeah, what else to say here? So we have a contributor here, Genenta MITRE-Attck is claiming the content of this page, so that's good that we have somebody who is proud of this work and willing to put his or her, I think that's a female name, putting her name on that that page. That means the person is proud of this work, and that's always a good indicator for me. But yeah, so far so good. Let's move on to procedure examples. As usual, there's not much that we can see here. So you have some APTs, you have Cobalt Strike, Cutting Edge Empire. So some of those names, Aquatic Panda. So some familiar names. So obviously, hackers will be using SSH. Of course they will. They just need a valid account, username and password. And once they have valid accounts, they try to log on to machines via SSH. Does it mean that SSH should be shut down? Of course not. It's a useful technology. You cannot get rid of it. Okay, so there are cases or arguments where you can say, let's shut this technology down. It's a hazard, but in this case, SSH is one of those crucial softwares. You cannot shut it down. Okay, whenever you have somebody who wants to work with Linux, that's the only way to effectively work with it. And so don't get discouraged by the fact that people are, hackers are using SSH. Well, of course they do if you give them the opportunity to log in with a valid account. Also what I see here, PuTTY. That stuff is a typical software that is implementing SSH. Okay, so PuTTY is the classic software. You might use it from a Windows machine. You might be on a Windows machine executing PuTTY, and that thing opens you shell on a Linux machine. That stuff is, and here we have PuTTY again. This is just a software. Don't get confused. SSH, PuTTY, what does it mean? Well, SSH is a protocol technology. PuTTY is a specific implementation of that protocol. That's all. Yeah, but that's the procedures. So it is relevant. It is used by hackers. That's the takeaway here. Now let's take a look at mitigations and detection strategy. So, well, mitigation, they say disable or remove feature or program. Disable the SSH daemon on systems that do not require it, especially ESXi servers. Well, that's easy said, that do not require it. So every administrator would like to log in via SSH, because what is the alternative? The alternative is the guy has to walk to the server physically in that server room where it is located and connect to that system directly. You don't want to be doing that, especially not if you are in charge of like hundreds of these servers. You cannot physically walk over there every time. For extreme high security stuff, I agree, yes, but for the typical Linux machine, you cannot disable SSH without disturbing the productivity of your people a lot. So be careful with that mitigation recommendation here. So I wouldn't recommend disabling that stuff. Then multi-factor authentication. Yeah, so require multi-factor authentication for SSH wherever possible. Yes, of course. So, and we have seen this idea with the file public and private key stuff. So obviously MFA can help. It's not always possible though with this. So I haven't seen real MFA with SSH for some reason. For example, some tokens on your smartphone or so. I have never met this kind of technology, but it's obviously MFA is always a good recommendation for anything. I'm just wondering if it is feasible for SSH. Well, if it is just available easily, or if it's a big hazard to implement that. That I'm not familiar with. So if you are smarter on that topic, let me know in the comments how multi-factor authentication can be simply implemented with SSH. So like a token on the phone, or an SMS is being sent with a key or whatever. So just let me know if you have any knowledge on the specific implementations. Be interesting to know. And then we have user account management, obviously. So limit which user accounts should be able to log in via SSH. So yeah, that's true. So only administrators need that. So all of your typical users who are working with Excel and PowerPoint, they don't need that stuff. That's true. So yeah, but that's mitigation. So totally agree. There's not much you can mitigate with SSH. So just know that this is a useful piece of technology, and the problem is not with SSH typically. It is with the valid accounts. Protect your accounts a little better. Without a valid credential, you cannot use SSH. And when it comes to detection strategy, they say, okay, behavior monitoring as usual. This will be difficult. So again, they say execution of suspicious binaries. Yes, that's absolutely true. But you will see a lot of SSH logins on your machines. And they say here SSH login in all cases, and then followed by some suspicious stuff. Well, good luck finding that. So that's difficult to detect. Especially it's difficult to differentiate the activity of your administrators and malicious activity. So there's this detection strategy description here. I believe it is not very useful for a SOC to implement that. I mean, what is suspicious in that sense? Sometimes you know what suspicious is, but in this case you wouldn't know it. The administrator is just doing his job. You can agree with the people on a 9 to 5, let's say, work times, and you say, people, if you log in via SSH, make sure it is in this time frame. That's one way to do it. But besides that, you should focus maybe on the access data, or as they say, suspicious binaries. So just don't focus too much on the SSH component here. Focus more on what is being done with that shell access. This might be more useful. But yeah, so that's all I know about this, or all I can add to this. So let's move on then to references and see whether we can find something interesting. So you have in total here 34 references, so we almost got the entire list. And yeah, so we have here some names that I don't recognize. CrowdStrike, Threat Hunting Report. We are going to read that for sure. So we have seen that in one of the last videos too. Threat Hunting Report, and we are going to pick one of the newer ones and read it. Then you have Threat Intelligence, Espionage Gang Targets the Media, okay. Cobalt Strike from 2017. Yeah, CISA has written something here. People's Public of, yeah, the China stuff, we have seen it. Base Systems and PWC, 2017 though. Unit 42 from Palo Alto. Okay. Cisco Talos, Weathering the Storm. So I've seen this. And I like the title. So they really tried hard here to catch the attention. So the title doesn't sound like a security midst of a typhoon. It sounds like an action movie. So they did a good job here. It catches the eye, and I think I'm going to take a look at that at a later point. Then we have two researchers by Mandiant, very recent, defending against ATT&CK 3944, cybercrime hardening guidance from the front lines. Okay, another Mandiant. Desktop to hypervisor, defending your VMware vSphere estate. Okay, so they are trying to defend from ATT&CK 3944. I'm not familiar with what that is, but when it repeats more often as usual, we are going to take a look at that. But yeah, so that's all, people. So we covered a little bit, 15 minutes in. We now have an idea about secure shell in the context of a remote service, Mitre-Attack. So as you can see, old technologies. Secure shell is also pretty old, right? Has been used for decades now. Yeah, Mitre covers that stuff as well. I'm really glad that we found it here too. So it's one of those things that people are working all the time with. And yeah, so as usual, thank you for watching, people. Thank you for spending time on cybersecurity. It is time well spent, and see you in the next video then. Goodbye.